Hello and welcome to another episode of Timeless Wealth. Today, I'm Amy Dietz and I'm with Danica Bouchard and Chantel Thomas from the Philantra team here at National Bank. Excited to have you ladies and talk about a little bit about what Philantra is. It definitely piqued my interest, and I think a lot of our listeners, again, when we're talking about charitable giving, I think this is going to be an interesting topic and all the different options we have available here. So coming up next. Welcome back. So hi, Chantel. Hi, Danica. Thanks for being here today. Chantel, you just got in off your flight off Montreal. So right off the plane and into the podcast studio.
Absolutely. Another nice day in Toronto.
It actually is. It was rainy yesterday, but it's beautiful today. So, well, today we're going to be talking about a program we have here at National Bank called Philantra. And so I'm very familiar with, I have a lot of clients that like to make donations, and oftentimes they're making checks throughout the year. You know, oftentimes we see in December, that's a really busy month for donations. And so then there's a lot of check writing at that point. But we often forget that there's other ways to give, right? And there's a lot of tax advantages to donating as well. It's good to have the charity in mind, but sometimes we don't have the time because we get busy in our day-to-day lives. So your group has a fantastic program that I went, oh my goodness, this is so great. And it's so easy. And so we're going to talk about kind of the three main things today of like what makes Philantra and why is it so helpful when it comes to charities. So maybe just take a second and tell me a little bit about like your background, Chantel. You've been doing this for a long time, right?
Yes, I've been working in philanthropy for, I'm afraid to say, almost 30 years. So all of that to say, I'm very passionate about philanthropy itself and about people who give. We meet fantastic people. They are at their stage in their life where they want to give back and they want to make it efficient. They want to ideally take the easy, nice part and rely on us for the administration and everything having to do with receipt for income tax, even calculations. So I think what we hear from our client is that they think it's flexible, very easygoing, and at the end of the day, they're very satisfied.
What I found really interesting, because typically when I've looked at other institutions, the way it works is you say you have this idea, you have a certain amount of money that you want to dedicate to charity and do your gifting from there. But you're usually forced into these specific funds or specific investments that not everybody really likes. They kind of want to still have that control and be able to manage it the way they are used to managing their other affairs, but there's not that option for them. But the unique thing about Philantra is you actually can still do that. So you still have that control over how you're investing your money, but have the resources of your team to actually help them do all the administration like you talked about.
Absolutely. People like to keep a certain control just because they're used to, and they have been successful, so they have very good points, wanting to be more attached to the investment. So everything is transparent for them.
Right.
And one of the good idea, and we hear a lot about that, is that they stay with their advisor that they trust, that they know sometime for years.
Yeah.
And this team is successful already. So it's interesting for the advisors, from what I understand, to stay involved and play a certain role and just help in the way they can in their role and duty.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If I can add to this, I think the way we present it and our clients really appreciate is that they already have their circle of trust, right? Like within the bank or with their experts. And we're kind of a satellite team coming in and adding value, but without changing everything around them. So we work with, if they have a tax specialist, we'll work with them. If they have a legal advisor, we'll work with them, and their investment advisor. So it doesn't change their whole world. They just have an additional team coming in to help them. And we're there for as long as they want us to be, part of that. Because some funds are going to be perpetuity.
Can you talk a little bit about what does a typical client look like? Because if I say to somebody, have you ever thought about setting up a charitable foundation? They might go, how much money do I need to have to do that? That sounds like a really big task. And maybe I'm just better off just to write my individual checks whenever I feel like it. What type of person or what, characteristics of a client do you typically see?
I would say people that already are giving most of the time, or they get to this point in their life where they want to give, they are capable of giving, and they don't know where to start very often. So they will ask all kind of questions, some about the transaction itself, some about where should I give, who should I trust, how much should I give to have an impact, can I measure the impact, can I what are the administration fees? Can I just give locally because I really appreciate my community? And the contrary, can I give anywhere in the world? Can I give to my alma mater in the States? And they don't know where to start. So any question that an advisor would hear having to do with donating, with past experience, with desire to do something, with gift and will or intention of giving in the will. And this is something that sometimes is, of course, you don't speak about that every day. So another area where there's a lot of questions on how should I, what should I write?
We see that a lot when we work with clients on the estate side. I think I want to donate something to charity. I'm not sure which charity. I don't know how to do it. Where does that come in? So that we have a lot of those conversations.
That brings me to something that we decided to develop, and I think it's part of our success. It's that it would be an error to see a foundation like the Philantra Foundation like the center of what we should offer to people. It is very well designed. It is well taught. It's really satisfying for people. But this is just a piece of it. I think what's most important is the service that we develop around it. So the best advice we give to everyone, in fact, but mostly the advisors who are working with their client on a day-to-day basis, is that they should contact us sooner than later, as soon as there is a conversation or a question. Or sometime a life event, liquidity event as well. If
that's a good point. It's a really good point, because it's not always just estate, but sometimes when you sell your business, there's money that's come in, or maybe you're an executive and you get kind of those chunky bonuses, and there's sometimes that I want to give along the way. When I get those bonuses, how do I do it in a more thoughtful, tax efficient way? I
feel like telling a story now, and it will introduce the role of the third person in the team, which is Julie Milligan. Julie is responsible for anything having to do with administration of the foundation itself. But because of her skills as a financial planner, she grabbed very fast the tool that the experts in tax developed for us. And she's playing with that tool lovely. I mean, she really can make the numbers talk. So we bring the conversation towards the transaction when time comes to selling a company, because and I have a different example in mind. People are saying these words to the advisor. Well, now I'm slowing down. I want to sell that company. And after, I want to give back. I want to be involved as a volunteer. And I want to involve my family. Okay, when after? Because it's some piece of it should be done now. Don't wait for after the tax event, because you give less at the end of the day. So it is a lot at the same time, the same year, when you do all the planning, you sell your company. It is very busy. But nevertheless, it's the moment to just chunk this piece of tax calculation and make the most strategic gift that you can. then rest.
Well, it's a way to make your money go further and that gift go further
And
too,
you don't
right?
have to know at first where you want to give.
Right.
After you have time.
Yes.
And this is, I think, a key of what we call the DAF, the Donor Advice Fund.
Right.
There are a couple of other foundations like Philantra around, but I think what is unique in what we are developing now is this service, this accompaniment. We go up front and make sure people know. In a way, we educate if they don't know or they know pieces of it or they're not comfortable.
Right.
It's our comfort zone. So come to us. And Julie will help with the transaction, at least makes things clear. Another way, sometimes it starts by giving in will. And very often, if it's not calculated, I've seen that tons of time, there are a credit loss.
Right.
When time comes to the estate and the gift is realized, there is not enough space because there is a maximum space to make a gift in will.
Right.
And it's too late. So this is the answer to this is planning.
Right.
Financial planning, tax planning, estate planning.
Right.
Of course, we are in a privileged position, right?
Yeah.
So I think comes with that a big responsibility.
Well, and I think the other thing, and you touched on it too, and Danica, you and I have chatted about that as well, is the advice on the gift. Because oftentimes I have clients that will come and say, I want to help a children's charity, or I'm passionate about animals, or, you name it. Maybe there's an event like a natural disaster events or things like that kind of pop up. Like we're talking about forest fires and things right now. So sometimes they don't know where to get that information. Like, which charity do I give to? I have no idea. Where do I start? But you guys can actually help us with that as well.
Danica will help them. This is a role, and this is something that people have never heard of. And it's the wow of the year, I would say. So Danica, maybe you can speak about some example. I have some in mind, talking about animals or anything. There are tons
Where
of
do you
examples.
start? Like if somebody comes to Danica and says, I'm passionate about animals, what do you do with that? Because it's like, you figured out.
But it's a great question. And to be honest, I would say more than 50% of the clients who are like, they're okay with the transaction. They understand the benefits of it. They want to give.
Right.
They do not have a precise cause in mind.
Right.
So that's very common that we do have that conversation. And what we develop is actually like a coaching approach. If you want to get a vision, really a vision. Because so charities, when you have like a foundation or a DAF, like a donor advice fund, you do have this disbursement quota, right? So you do have to give a minimum. And I want to say, I think most of our clients do give almost a double of it.
Right.
So that's great, right? So they really want to give. So we want to make sure that the impact is the greatest, right?
Right.
So that vision makes sense. And so we have an example of a client. We're almost there, right? Like if that's what same one we have in mind, we're almost there, like the final steps. He was the first client I met on November 1st when I started.
Right.
And then we had, I think it was the first session of like, kind of brainstorming.
Right.
And since then, it went there and there and there, like a different.
All over the place.
Over the place.
Yeah.
And then, we touched like, what matters the most to them. And sometimes
So you
tears
really
are
take
shed.
an educational approach to educating
Absolutely.
clients about where their gift goes, how it's used,
and how they can even have a greater impact, greater than the cause itself, because they can be used as leverage. They can use themselves as leverage, right? With some foundation, for example. So they can solicit with online donations, for example. There's a lot of things that we can do for them, that we can create with them that they don't know. But to go back to your question, then, so once, we kind of felt, this area seems to be where it's key to them.
Right.
So then we identified a couple of charities. I had chats with them, with Chantal. We had meetings and we developed like a specific project that is exactly what the charity needs.
Right.
And that is exactly what the donors are looking for.
Oh, that's perfect.
And the next step in this case, it's their meeting together, right? And I think it's going to go forward.
Yeah.
And we're talking about huge amount of money, but I don't know if you ever heard of trust-based philanthropy, which is we're kind of leaving the charities decide, where the money is going to go.
Right.
in terms of their needs.
Oh, I see. So trust-based is you just leave it up to the
like
charity
unrestricted
to like
gifts and stuff like that, right? So there's education that we also do with the donors, saying we understand this is what we care, what you care about, but these are the needs. Is there something that we can do together? In this case, it was exactly that.
So you can be more specific is exactly how those dollars will be spent if you want to have that level of control.
The pledge agreement on behalf of the donors. And I'd like to hear a little bit about what you do to help foundations themselves, because they don't, sometimes they did not prepare for such deep questions. Like a lot of charity will speak about anything they do, which is fantastic. But something it lacks a bit of
like a formality, like
the numbers. Numbers are missing. We're talking about young kids. Okay, how many kids and how much for one kids, and that speaks to donors.
Right.
So in a way, then you guys are helping a lot. The charities themselves to get better at what they're doing.
Right.
Not that they don't do it well, but they're not used to that level of question that we pull out of the donor. Because if you don't do that, there could be a deception. We want to make sure that when they decide and what it is that they want to measure, we'll be able to prepare it before the transaction rather than after. Apart from making it easier for the charities to receive a simple wire transfer instead of being challenged with gifts, transfer of listed security and gift of life insurance, all of that.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that.
So there's a lot that goes into giving, right? It's not just simply writing your checks. There's a way to actually make it more impactful, more meaningful to the actual person donating, but also to the charity. So it's a real, you kind of create this partnership on both sides and kind of complete that whole circle, right?
Because the goal is that we all want the charities to receive more.
Right.
So we see the capacity, we see people that with want to give, but sometimes they refrain themselves because they doubt, and they hesitate, and finally it's not going on. So it's very important, and when they're happy, they give more.
Right.
I mean, that's why we don't put any maximum giving. We don't want people to feel
If you actually see the
form.
money going to a specific thing and you can actually see with your eyes the impact, you're probably going to get more behind the cause and feel more committed to the cause. As well as the foundation will you build that partnership with them too.
And people are allowed to expect putting their name on buildings, things like that, but they don't know how much should I give, who should I trust. The charities don't have the same figures. It's an old world, and it's just fun to help them navigate and make their own mind around.
Well, this has been really, really helpful as an overview. So I think the top 3 things. What I've heard is you make it simple. You make it easy to, talk about your donations. You help optimize the tax strategies to make sure you're getting the most out of that gift as well. But then the advice around the charities themselves and what your own vision is, I think is hugely important. Because again, a lot of people want to give, but it's just, I don't know exactly where or how to do it. So those are the 3 main things that I think really stood out. And, again, having that control over your investment is also really key. So I think it's a great program, and I definitely see a lot of advantages to using it and getting that extra advice and making it part of that plan. And to your point, Chantel, talking about it sooner than later, it's not always left at the end of the estate. That ongoing tax benefit and gift that you can give ongoing is hugely important. So plus, you probably see some funny visions that people have too. Like people are probably very creative, I can imagine. So you've probably seen it all.
They all call themselves crazy dreamers, and they are. But we like it.
Well,
we like to create that vision.
Position to dream in a way.
Yes,
they should, because if they don't, who will?
Right.
I mean, they are really privileged.
Well, we'll have you back for another session, and we'll talk about some of the funny stories and things that people do.
Absolutely, with great pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Till next.